My name is Valentina. I am 35 years old and I work as an interior architect in San Francisco. For 10 years, I have designed dozens of living spaces for some of the wealthiest and most exacting clients in the United States. But this penthouse in the heart of the city, that is the only place I designed for myself. One afternoon, just after finishing a meeting with a client, I found a gold-foiled envelope placed right at my front door. Intricate, luxurious, even tied with a red silk bow. I opened it, thinking it might be from a partner, but my heart stopped. It was an invitation to a celebration, for my brother, Andrew. What froze me was the address printed clearly on the card, my apartment. No prior courtesy, no advance message. I immediately opened the security camera app on my phone. The sight that appeared made it hard to breathe. My parents, Robert and Linda, were leading a few strangers through my home, casually showing the place around as if introducing a family. Property. They called it the Delaney family home. Have you ever had your own space taken from you so brazenly? Have you stayed silent so long that one day you suddenly realize you must stand up? If you have felt dismissed, had your effort taken away, or been treated like a tool by your own family, please leave a comment below. Hit like and subscribe to follow this story to the end. Because what happens next will keep you glued. I sat motionless in the chair, my hand still gripping the invitation as if it were the only thing anchoring me to the present. The italic black ink on that cream paper kept replaying in my head. You are cordially invited to attend the celebration honoring Bradwell Corporation's Vice President, Andrew Delaney, at the distinguished family residence of the Delaneys, number. I didn't need to read further. This was the penthouse I had poured my heart, time, and effort into. No one but me had the right to call it a home. I rewound the security camera feed to 10 minutes earlier. My father wore a gray pinstriped suit, posture proud, gesturing toward the balcony as though it were a property he had bought to gift someone. My mother stood beside him, her blonde hair carefully styled, constantly smiling and nodding at the strangers who marveled at the light flooding the room. I stared at the screen, and my anger dissolved into emptiness. We chose this place because it reflects our family's status. I could clearly hear my mother say over the microphone, "Andrew needs a place befitting this milestone." And just like that, everything I had created for myself, each design line, every light angle I adjusted through long nights was suddenly labeled a platform for the child they always prided themselves on. I was born into an idealized family admired by those around us. My father is a seasoned attorney, an honorary member of the governing board of one of San Francisco's oldest law firms. My mother is a former university lecturer who now spends her time at tea gatherings, charity groups, and social cocktail events. And Andrew, the golden son, the brother I used to carry in my arms, has been the family star since he was little. He was always sheltered, praised, and pampered like an investment expected to yield high returns. And me? I was the daughter with an eye for aesthetics but not practical sense, the one who refused to study law and declined the path laid out for me. I chose interior design and moved out on my own at 21, starting with tiny studios, small contracts, and no one in the family believing I would make it. For years, I never received a sincere congratulation from them, even when I graced the cover of a leading design magazine. My mother would smile and say, "That's nice. But you should think about long-term stability, maybe advise a firm, or better yet, work for your father as an assistant." I learned to swallow disappointment, to build a tough exterior, and to keep working. But what I cannot accept is that this house, the only space I built and decorated myself, the place where I felt free and safe, would be used as the backdrop for their uninvited boasting. I opened my contacts and scrolled to the name Mom. I had called her a few days earlier, telling her I needed quiet for a few weeks to finish a project for an Italian couple who wanted to restore an old villa in Napa. She had nodded and said, "Yes, focus on your work." Yet while I buried myself in design schematics and color boards, they had been quietly planning, sending invitations, booking services, and picking dates. No consultation, no respect. I switched to my calendar tab and checked the event date. Next Saturday. 1 week. In just 1 week, they would welcome more than 100 people into my home and call it the symbol of the family's success. A chime from the security system sounded someone had just entered the lobby. I opened the camera. It was Andrew. He wore a navy blue shirt, sunglasses, and held a coffee cup from his favorite shop. I zoomed in. Andrew stood in the living room, shrugging to a young woman in a suit, likely an event coordinator. "Just imagine this as his home," Andrew said, his voice carrying clearly on the audio system. "If there's anything to tweak, tell them. My sister won't mind." I closed the camera. It felt like the air had been drained out of me. I rose, crossed the kitchen, and automatically started the coffee maker, though caffeine was the last thing I needed right then. I needed clarity. I needed a plan. Until now, I had always given in. Played the dutiful daughter, kept silent when I was pushed aside, smiled when I was criticized, but not anymore. This apartment is mine, not a family emblem, not Andrew's stage. I opened my laptop and went to the real estate documents folder. I had carefully kept every receipt, every transaction, every document proving ownership. Every piece of furniture, every fixture had been purchased from my company account, with money I earned through long nights and major projects. No one at home ever asked me, "How did you manage to buy this place?" Because to them, my existence only mattered insofar as it served their image. I remembered the night Andrew was hired at Bradwell. My mother popped champagne. My father made a speech as if it were a holiday. When I mentioned I had just signed a contract to renovate a resort in Santa Barbara, they nodded and then shifted the topic to Andrew's engagement plans. This house is everything I built without any of them, and now, precisely because of that, they want to turn it into theirs. I looked around. The space was still calm. The afternoon light filtered through the silk drapes I ordered from Italy. Reflecting off the painting hung center stage in the living room, an abstract piece by an unknown artist I met at a small show in Portland. I chose it because it represented inner conflict. Bold red and black forms interlocking like conversations left unsaid in my family. Then my phone rang. It was my mother. I watched it flash on the table. I didn't answer. I was no longer the obedient daughter they could arrange. I let the phone ring until it stopped, but a few seconds later it rang again. Still my mother. No text, no voicemail. She was never the first to apologize. I hit redial and took a deep breath as the line picked up. "Valentina, I was just about to message you," she said, her voice light as if I had accidentally interrupted her tea. "I just wanted to check if you could tidy up the living room on Saturday before the decorators arrive. The oak table looks heavy. I think leaving it bare will suit the light better." "You mean, my apartment?" I kept my voice even. "Don't make a fuss," my mother replied with that familiar, languid tone. "We are family. Families share. That apartment, it's the face of our household in the city. And this party is for Andrew. You should be glad your place can contribute to your brother's big event." I leaned back slowly in the chair. "Wouldn't it have been better to ask me before deciding?" "Valentina." She elongated my name as if speaking to a child. "We raised you, we taught you. If it weren't for the family foundation, could you have purchased that place? I don't want you to get so caught up in your ego that you forget the family bond." I gripped the phone. No one in the family ever asked where I got the money to buy it. Or how I worked, the sacrifices I made to build my company. A very short silence. Then she said, more slowly, "You're headstrong. But at least you've done something worthwhile. Now it's time to give a little back to the family. Give back." Those two words cut small but deep. "So my house is now a shared reward?" "Don't be dramatic," she sighed. "You always think everyone is against you. But this is an important event. Your name is listed as a host. Isn't that enough?" I hung up without answering further. A message arrived immediately from Andrew. "Andrew, why did you call Mom? You're making her worry. This is my event. You should be proud your place is classy enough to be the backdrop for my success." "Proud?" I tilted my head back to the cream ceiling, where the custom chandelier I had commissioned from an artisan in Vermont hung. Each blown glass sphere caught the light, creating the feeling of a small sky inside the room. I chose it after winning the commission to redesign the lobby at the Harper and Gray Hotel, a milestone no one in my family mentioned. My mother used to call it that odd lamp. I scrolled through my phone album to 5 years ago. There was a photo of Andrew and me at my graduation the day I defended my master's thesis in residential design at UCLA. I remember, After the ceremony, my father shook Andrew's hand and said, "Son, if you hadn't come with me today, I might have dozed off." I laughed then, as if his remark were harmless. Later, when I was named among 30 influential female designers under 35 in the Western United States, my mother texted, "Congratulations. Don't forget to pick a modest dress if you're invited on stage." I had grown used to their lack of recognition, always waiting for the moment they'd try to shape me into the model they wanted. I grew up in a home where praise was reserved for what fit their definition of stability. Andrew gets a law scholarship? Wonderful. Andrew lands the job at Bradwell? So proud. I open my interior design firm? Fine, as long as you don't go bankrupt. They often use the phrase, thinking outside the box, to describe me, but not in a positive way. To them, everything I did was different. I used to think that if I kept doing well, if I did well enough, they would change how they saw me. But it seems the more successful I became, the more I was treated like an excuse they could present as the poster child, and then deny the real me. I wasn't angry because they were planning a party in my home. I was furious because they didn't regard me as a person with the right to decide. My phone rang. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Miss Valentina?" "Yes, I'm listening." "We are the Golden Line Event Company. Your mother, Mrs. Linda, booked our decorating and sound services for the event on Saturday. We need to survey the space tomorrow, if possible. Will anyone be at home?" I took a long breath and kept my voice calm. "No, no one will be." "Oh, then could you leave the key at reception, or send us the code?" I was silent for a few seconds, then said clearly, "This is a private residence. I have not agreed to let anyone use that space. If your team comes without permission, I will consider it trespassing." There was a pause on the other end. "Sorry. I thought the venue had already been confirmed by the family. I am the legal owner, and I have not signed any contract with your company." I hung up before hearing another word. I am not a decorative prop in someone else's success story. I am not the backdrop upon which others place their feet to step higher. I have accepted too many dismissals dressed up as family. And now, when they think they can repeat that pattern yet again, they have misjudged me. I opened my computer. I typed into the search bar, "Real Estate Attorney San Francisco Consultation on Private Property Usage Rights." It was time to reset every boundary. Not because I wanted drama, but because I could not let them erase the value I had spent a decade building. I could not sleep that night. Every sound in the apartment seemed amplified by tenfold. The wall clock ticked like a countdown to something irreversible. Lights from the high-rise across the street spilled into the space I used to think of as my refuge. That feeling of belonging had been eroded. In its place, a gnawing unease clung to every corner. I sat on the sofa with my laptop on my lap, the security camera interface open. I had never needed them as much as I did now, at around 10 a.m. The front door opened. I clicked the lobby camera thumbnail and enlarged it. Andrew walked in, followed by 3 well-dressed men, laughing and talking. He didn't hesitate to take off his sunglasses, turn to one of them, and point toward the stairs leading to the study. "Second floor can be divided into 3 separate rooms," Andrew said loudly, clearly. "One side for meetings, the other for executive offices. The open plan layout makes it easy to divide." I sat frozen. The mouse cursor trembled in time with my racing heart. A salt and pepper man with a solid build nodded. "Great spot. The city view will pay off." Andrew smiled and pushed the door to the balcony open. "We want to open a satellite office for the Bay, a development group right here. Dad suggested it last week, and I think this penthouse is the perfect choice." "We?" one of the group asked. "My family," Andrew replied tersely. "This penthouse is under my sister's name, but in practice it's a shared asset. Mom and Dad bought it to support her career. She won't mind. We've talked about it." It felt like someone had drained the air from my lungs. Not a single word of that was true. I bought this apartment 3 years ago, with savings from 7 major projects, plus a mortgage I paid off at the end of last year. Contracts, transfer receipts, even tax documents, every paper clearly showed I was the sole owner. I switched the camera to the living room. My mother appeared in frame, holding a cup of tea, smiling at the group that had just entered. "Welcome, gentlemen," she said, carrying herself like an elegant hostess. I hope the apartment pleases you. We look forward to seeing your official satellite office. Here soon. The place is spacious, bright, beautifully designed, ideal for work, someone said. If the paperwork is in order, we can sign an agreement to use the space right after the event. Fantastic. My father was only now appearing from the hallway that leads to my study. I've arranged everything. The apartment will be handed over on Monday, after removing unnecessary furnishings. We want the space flexible enough for your layout needs. I sank back into the chair, a shiver running down my spine. It wasn't just a party, not merely a flashy launch. They intended to take the apartment outright, without permission, without notice, without asking how I felt about it. This home was designed by me down to every brick and plane of light. I paid for it month after month, dollar by dollar. Yet they planned to turn it into a satellite office. I pulled open the drawer, took the stack of original documents from the safe. Bank statements, mortgage contract, invoices, for furniture. I placed them all on the table. Living, indisputable evidence. A notification chimed. Someone had entered through the back door. I opened the camera. A team in event uniforms stood in the elevator, holding layout drawings. One of them pressed the doorbell and looked up at the camera. I didn't answer. They had no right to enter my home. I grabbed my phone and dialed the lawyer. Her name was Marissa Evans, recommended by a close friend who had won full rights in her divorce thanks to Marissa's tenacity and smarts. Miss Valentina? Hi, Miss Evans. I need urgent advice on property ownership and privacy rights. My family is treating my apartment as if it belongs to them, and they're negotiating to hand it over to others without my consent. I need you to tell me everything, Marissa said, steady and calm. Step by step, and if you have evidence, video, paperwork, recordings, that will help immensely. I have everything, I said slowly. And I want to stop them before they make me an outsider in my own home. We can do this, Marissa replied. But we must be careful. If they've already framed this as family property, they may have prepared legal strategies. I looked back at the camera screen. My mother was standing in the living room, pointing at the painting I loved most, telling the event designer, "We want to remove this. Replace it with the corporate logo. It doesn't fit the event style." I shut the screen off. They could remove the painting, they could move the furniture, they could build a stage, roll out carpets, even set up a podium in the dining room where I used to sit alone on quiet nights. But they would not take it. Not my effort, not my right to decide. Not the one thing I had built without intending to show off to anyone. I called Chloe. She's my college friend, the only one who witnessed my failures. Every moment I doubted myself, the one who always texts whenever she sees my name. In the paper, proud of you. Val? Chloe, I need real advice, not small talk. You called the right person, she said. They're not just hosting the party in my apartment, Chloe. They plan to turn it into an office. They're negotiating like I don't exist. A few seconds of silence, then Chloe said slowly and firmly, "Do you still have the purchase contract? The payment records? Photos of the projects you completed to buy the apartment?" "All on the table," I answered. "Then they have nothing but words. And if you let them get away with it, you'll always be the blurred backdrop behind Andrew. But if you stand up, I don't want to make a scene." "Valentina." Her voice hardened. "They made it a scene first. What they don't expect is that you can reply in kind." I looked down at the legal pages, the numbers I had painstakingly saved month after month. Then I looked up at the house that had once been my refuge. I had no choice but to step out of the role of the good daughter they wanted to keep me in forever. I sat by the floor-to-ceiling window, afternoon light laying across the room like a thin veil. The city below hustled on as usual, cars moving, people on separate trajectories. Yet inside this home everything felt slowed, as if my life had turned onto a road I never chose. Chloe arrived around 5 p.m., carrying 2 cappuccinos and a bag of butter cookies from her favorite bakery. She set the bag on the table, took off her scarf, and sat across from me, her eyes scanning the room before resting on the open laptop. "I could read your face from the door," Chloe said, voice low and even. "How bad is it?" "Worse than I thought," I answered. "Andrew brought partners here and brazenly claimed the apartment is family-owned. Dad promised after the party they'd hand over the space to open an office. Chloe did not reply right away. She carefully lifted the lid of her coffee cup and stirred slowly, as if weighing each word. I knew she wasn't the impulsive type. As a freelance reporter writing for financial and social outlets, Chloe had long been practiced at reading the smallest signs to capture a bigger story. "Val, I was going to keep this to myself," she said, looking up at me with an unusually serious expression. "But I can't anymore." I looked at her and waited. Last week, I followed a networking event put on by the City Business Association at a rooftop restaurant in the marina. Nearly all the notable faces from the legal, real estate, and investment communities in San Francisco were there. I nodded slightly, a bad feeling rising in my chest. "Robert, your father was there too. I heard him talking with a group that included a few people from Greystone and an investment manager from New York." Chloe paused and took a sip of her coffee. "He was talking about Andrew, about his recent appointment as vice president, about the Tomb upcoming party, about the family's success, and then he said something that nearly made me drop my cup." "What did he say?" I asked, my voice already hoarse. He said, "I bought my daughter a penthouse near downtown as a landing spot, and now it's time for Andrew to turn it into a business space." I sank back, my back pressed to the chair. The feeling inside me wasn't anger so much as something deep and cold. "That comment wiped your effort out of the story," Chloe said softly, "as if you were merely an auxiliary piece in their long-term plan." I smiled without sound. There was no sarcasm in it, just the reflex of someone who no longer had the emotional energy to cry. "They never valued what I did," I said, staring into the air. "They treat my company like some daughter's hobby." When I made the cover of a magazine, my father told his friends, Valentina was lucky to find a few wealthy clients. When I won an international design award, my mother said, "She pursues an odd aesthetic, but at least she's neat and not scandalous." "But you kept going," Chloe emphasized. "You built all of it with your own hands." "No one has the right to erase your name from that." I looked at her, grateful. Chloe's presence in moments like this was the only thing that kept me from feeling completely alone. "The problem," I said, "is that if I react too strongly, they'll call me selfish, a daughter who can't compromise. And if you stay silent, they'll keep taking everything." Chloe said decisively, "This isn't just about a party anymore, Val. This is about who gets to define your story. They're claiming credit for your achievements." I bent down, picked up the folder of documents, flipped through a few pages, and pushed it toward Chloe. "These are the purchase papers, payment statements, bank records, construction contracts." I already photocopied another set and sent it to the lawyer. Chloe nodded, leafing through the pages with her lips pressed together. "Do you have photos of your company's portfolio as well?" "I'll print those later." "What do you think I should do next?" "Set clear boundaries. Make ownership public. If they continue to falsely claim or use the apartment for commercial purposes, you can sue. At minimum, they need to know you are not the quiet kid standing off stage anymore." I leaned back and took a deep breath. The afternoon sun was fading, casting long shadows across the floor. "Have you ever felt," I whispered, "that the more you try to prove you deserve something, the more those around you want to deny that very thing?" Chloe didn't answer right away. She tilted her head and said softly, "Yes, but no one has the right to deny the truth unless you let them. You have been patient all your life. Now, I think it's time you write your own story." I looked at her, and for the first time in many days, I nodded with a steadiness I hadn't felt before. I no longer wanted to run away from this. I wanted to reclaim my name. I arranged to meet Marissa the next morning at her small office on the 4th floor of an elegant building in the financial district. It wasn't a flashy place meant to impress, but every detail in the room was tidy and ordered in a way that made me feel reassured. Marissa greeted me with a firm handshake, steady eyes, and a no-nonsense manner of speaking. She had a way of making people drop any sense of weakness. I handed her the packet of documents I had prepared the night before: deed papers, bank statements, transfer contracts, invoices for the interior work. "You've kept everything very thoroughly," Marissa said, flipping quickly through the pages. "The penthouse is in your name alone. No co-ownership, no marital assets, no authorization. I have lived independently since I was 21. I bought this apartment entirely with personal income." She nodded. "And now your family is using the space without consent?" More than that, they're negotiating with partners to hand over the apartment as an office after the party. They're lying that it's family property. They plan to change the interior and use it as the setting for an event I wasn't even officially invited to. Marissa looked at me for a few seconds, then marked a note in the folder with her pen. I will draft a cease and desist letter, send it via email and certified mail to everyone involved. Your parents, your brother, the event company, the crew, and any potential partners negotiating to lease or buy the apartment. The letter will state your sole ownership and that any unauthorized use or false statements about this property constitute legal violations. I nodded. How do you think they'll react? There are usually two types. One will back down when warned. The other will try to deny and spin public opinion. If they do the latter, we need the evidence ready. I'm collecting it, I said, pulling up the security app on my phone. I have recorded footage from my home cameras. I've saved all the messages, and I have a few phone call recordings. Marissa smiled. You're doing the right things. This is not just protecting property, it's protecting dignity. After signing a power of attorney and agreeing on the legal strategy, I left her office feeling lighter. Not because everything was solved, but because I realized I wasn't alone in this fight. Chloe waited for me in the lobby, 2 coffees in hand. She spotted me from across the hall and raised an eyebrow. How did it go? Better than I expected, I said. Marissa isn't just a lawyer. She understands how people weaponize silence. Well, Chloe laughed. That sounds like something from a TED Talk. We sat on a stone bench near the plaza. The midday sun filtered through the trees and settled on my shoulders as a pale gold. The sense inside me wasn't calm, but there was a new clarity I'd never felt before. Are you going to stop at hiring a lawyer? Chloe asked. Or will you go further? What do you mean? Go public, she said. Speak up. Not to smear anyone, but to tell the truth. You aren't just a daughter being used. You are an independent woman being written out of her own story. If you share that, many will understand many people have been where you are. I sat quietly, fingers tightening around my coffee cup. I had never considered airing such a private matter, but I remembered the feeling of watching my parents walk through my front door like they owned it. I remembered Andrew telling partners that the apartment was family property, erasing every bit of labor I had poured into making it mine. I've recorded a lot of footage, I said. I plan to use it as evidence. But what if I used it to tell the whole story? Chloe stared at me for a long moment. Are you talking about a documentary-style personal account? I'm thinking, a visual diary, I answered. Not sensationalized, not meant to shame, just the truth. A woman who served as a backdrop for someone else's success, a home turned into a stage, a life rewritten by other people's words. Chloe nodded, her eyes brightening. If you agree, I'll help you shape it. Edit, write the narration, tell the story. You know I live for real stories. I smiled softly. And if people call me a traitor to the family? Then I'll ask them, what does that family mean? Someone who truly loves you, or people who want to erase your name from your own home? We sat in silence for a long time as a breeze passed and slipped along our wrists. I felt a door had opened, not loudly, not with trumpets, but wide enough for me to step through if I was ready. I'll start tonight, I said. Film every corner of the apartment. Tell the story behind each object, each tile. And I'll document everything they are doing, everything they intend to do, as proof that I existed, that I built this, and I am not a shadow. Chloe put her hand on my shoulder and said nothing more. Some support needs no words, only presence, only belief. And for now, that was everything. Dinner was on Wednesday at my parents' house in Presidio Heights, a large gray classic home with white columns that always stood like a long-lived emblem of the family decorum my mother liked to reference on any occasion. I arrived on time, neither early nor late, with nothing but my composure. Andrew opened the door. He wore a khaki shirt, his hair neatly styled, and the smile of a promising young businessman. The tone of his "nice of you to come," as if I were a passing guest, made me grip my purse tighter. In the dining room, my mother adjusted the tablecloth, her eyes scanning the crystal glasses as if checking the lighting for a photo shoot. My father sat at the head of the table with a glass of red wine, the relaxed posture of someone who assumes he is always right. Tonight is to finalize important details, my mother said, without looking up. Since Saturday is coming very soon. I pulled out a chair and sat down without answering. Chloe's words from the night before still echoed in my head. If they see you as the backdrop, at least let them see you're not soft clay. We've just finished reviewing the confirmed guest list, my father said. About 130 people. All the notable names have confirmed. Do you remember Colin? Andrew asked, picking up his salad and turning toward me. He's an old classmate of mine, now head of legal at Landmark Capital. He'll come with his wife. We're considering inviting him as a strategic partner. Oh, I answered, flatly. Oh, and about the apartment, my father added, as if recalling a minor detail. After the party, Andrew will move in there for a few months. Convenient for work. I looked up. Which apartment? The Penthouse, of course, my mother replied for him, her tone casual. It's empty, while Andrew's been traveling a lot between offices. Staying there a few months won't hurt. I said nothing. I didn't need to. My phone buzzed in my purse. A short message from Marissa. The files are ready. Hard copy will be sent tomorrow morning. Of course, my mother went on. If you feel lonely living alone, you could consider moving back home. Your old room is still available. Move back? I asked, this time unable to hide my surprise. Well, family, you know. It's time you live closer to relatives. That apartment could be used for other things. A satellite office or a reception space. And you can work anywhere, right? Andrew chuckled. She works flexibly. All she needs is a laptop and Wi-Fi. I set down my fork and knife. I wasn't looking at anyone, but I heard every word clearly. I have no intention of moving anywhere. My mother froze. What do you mean? I am the sole owner of that apartment. It is not empty. It is my home. No one spoke. A silence fell, long enough for tension to seep into every inch of the walnut dining table. You're overreacting a bit, Valentina, my father said. It's only temporary arrangements. Our family needs cooperation. It's not that I won't cooperate, I replied. It's that I won't close my eyes and let others decide what happens to my living space. Andrew set his glass down. You're talking like we've taken your house. Not like, I said. You scheduled its use, brought partners here for a tour, declared you'd move in, and didn't ask me a single question. My mother sighed, as if disappointed that her daughter wasn't demonstrating the expected spirit of sacrifice for the group. Val, why do you have to make everything tense? Because if I don't speak up, this will keep happening. I took my phone out and placed it on the table. I'm working with a lawyer. Tomorrow, the family will receive an official notice of property ownership and a legal warning about unauthorized use of private space. My father sat up straight, his face paling slightly. You're threatening your parents? I'm protecting what I built, and I'm tired. Tired of pretending not to hear, not to see, not to feel the gentle appropriation you always do under the name of love. Andrew looked at me, stunned. He had never heard me speak like that. Maybe he never thought I would dare. Valentina, my mother said softly, a wind-like tone without any sweetness left. Are you choosing to separate yourself from the family? I looked at her. No. I'm choosing not to lose myself. Silence fell again, but now it was not the air of confrontation. It was the distance between people who had assumed they knew each other, only to realize, over many years, they had never really looked. My phone buzzed once more. Chloe. Camera caught them taking down the painting in the living room. I've saved it to the drive. Send me a note when you want the link. I looked at the screen, then slid the phone back into my bag. Dinner continued around roast beef and red wine, but the flavor of the evening had changed. No one mentioned the plan again. No one spoke further about the apartment, the party, or the guests. Maybe they realized I was no longer the daughter who avoided conflict, who let titles or expectations define her. And in that moment, I felt I had begun to inhabit my own space, the boundary I had just set between right and compromise. On Saturday morning, I woke earlier than usual. The sky outside was a clear, rare San Francisco blue, no wind, no fog, but not too harsh. The apartment was quiet, as if it, too, was waiting to see what would happen. I brewed a pot of tea and set it on the small table by the window, then opened my laptop. I had had the security system updated 3 days earlier, after hiring a technician to replace everything: door locks, the chime, motion sensors, even the elevator key code. No one but me had access. From the upper floors, I could see black cars gliding along the private drive toward the building. A Bentley, 2 Mercedes, a few luxury SUVs. As expected, today's event was not merely an engagement party or a work celebration. For my parents, it was an opportunity to display status. I wasn't there in person, but I watched everything. At a rooftop cafe a few blocks away, I sat at a table by the railing with my laptop open and my phone in hand, eyes fixed on the camera feed. Beside me, Chloe wore sunglasses and a jacket slung over her shoulders, slowly stirring her iced coffee. "Are you sure you want to watch from the start?" she asked. "I don't want to miss a second," I replied. On screen, the building's entrance had opened. A team in black uniforms was setting out a welcome board and large floral arrangements wrapped in gold ribbons. The sign read in ornate lettering, "Congratulations, Andrew Delaney. A new beginning, a new position, a new chapter of success." My father appeared first, in a dark gray suit with a silk navy tie and shoes polished to perfection. My mother followed in an ivory gown and carefully applied makeup, adjusting her pearl necklace as she stood outside the apartment with a practiced smile. Andrew emerged from the elevator, phone in hand, shaking hands with guests as they began to arrive. They posed for photos at the door as if they had just entered a place that belonged to them. An event staffer approached and handed a key to my father. He inserted it into the lock as if everything were going according to plan. But the key didn't turn. He tried again. Still nothing. My mother tilted her head, frowning. Andrew stepped forward, his face tightening. Another staffer presented an access card. They tried 3 times. The door remained locked. Chloe raised an eyebrow. "It's starting." On the screen, I saw my father dialing frantically, his face flushing. My mother forced her smile, but her lips twitched. Andrew whispered fiercely to a man in a tux, then pulled out his phone. A group of arriving guests began to murmur. An older woman with white hair in a bun asked loudly, "Why haven't they opened the door? I thought this was their home?" A man, possibly an investment partner, said to the person next to him, "I heard Mr. Robert gifted this place to his son as a private office." A woman in a purple dress chimed in, "The key doesn't work? Didn't they check beforehand?" The hallway camera recorded my mother making frantic calls. My phone screen flashed, 3 missed calls and 1 message. "Camila, it's Mom. The key isn't working. Where are you?" I stayed silent, watching. Andrew strode up to the door and knocked sharply on the glass. "Valentina," he called. "Out. Is anyone in there?" A few guests turned their heads. A young woman raised her phone and recorded. On the screen, I saw her typing the hashtag, number Delaney event fail. Chloe sipped her coffee, her voice even. "The crowd doesn't need to know what's going on yet, but they're starting to suspect." At that moment, someone from the technical crew leaned in to tell my father something. He frowned, glanced at my mother, and for a moment I saw the color drain from her face. One guest, apparently a reporter, quietly took out his phone to record. The livestream camera kept rolling, the comment feed filled with messages. "What's happening over there? Is that apartment not theirs? Fanciest wedding and they can't even get the door open. Drama. Is it time for the juicy part?" Chloe asked. I nodded slightly. The door camera captured Andrew shouting into his phone. His voice carried loud enough that a few people nearby could hear. "You can't play games like this. This is my day. You can't ruin it." I didn't respond. My father stepped to one side, listened quietly on the phone, then slowly lowered his hand. He said something to my mother. She stood motionless for a few seconds, then turned back to the guests and forced a smile. "We're having a little technical difficulty," she said, hands clasped in front of her. "But it will be fine. We have a plan B." What her plan B was, I had no idea, but it was clear the crowd was beginning to sense something amiss. Whispers spread like wind. Some people started to step back. A few guests quietly called for rides and left. Andrew, amid the noise and the live stream beginning to spread, stepped back, put his hand to his head, and hurried toward the elevator. I saw my mother sway and have to steady herself by holding my father's arm. Chloe looked up at me and said softly, You don't have to do anything else. They just smeared their own reputation. I watched the final frame on the screen. An amateur videographer had just caught the moment my mother knocked one last time, then turned and hissed to someone beside her, "Valentina will pay." I smiled faintly. There was nothing to pay. I had only done one thing: lock the door they never asked permission to walk through. Just as I was about to close my laptop, the exterior lobby camera screen flashed with a new signal. A team of technicians were setting up the sound system in front of the building, preparing the background music for the opening speech. A white backdrop with gilded lettering, "A new beginning, a new vision. The Delaney family celebrates Andrew," was raised in the middle of the lobby. But what they did not know was that on the other side of that banner, on the LED advertising screen mounted on the building's facade, the screen that usually played fashion clips or art events, I had queued up a video. Chloe glanced at her watch, then turned to me. "Is it time?" I nodded, opened the remote control app with my hand, and pressed play. The LED shifted from white to black. A still frame appeared, the angle from the camera mounted on the ceiling of my living room. The murmurs outside the building almost died down as white text began to scroll slowly across the black background. When the truth is warped, beautiful images lose their meaning. Then the footage began. My father, in a gray suit, stood in the living room pointing at the wall and said plainly, "After the party, we'll clear out the space and convert it into a satellite office." My mother continued, her voice full of enthusiasm. "She won't mind. She does design. Moving her workspace is easy." Next was footage of Andrew leading 3 men through the house and introducing them. "This penthouse was invested in by my family for my sister, but essentially it's for shared use. We want to turn it into a strategic workspace." The camera shifted angles to a clip from a recorded phone call. My mother's voice, cold and commanding. "Valentina should learn to accept that no one succeeds entirely on their own. Everything she has today is thanks to our background." After that came screenshots of text messages, one from my brother. "You should feel proud. Your apartment is classy enough to serve as the backdrop for my event." Another screenshot showed a message from my mother. "We are a family. Don't make an issue about whose name is on it." Finally, the screen displayed a PDF titled clearly, "Property Ownership Certificate, Valentina Delaney." Immediately below it was the legal certification, with a notary's signature, the issue date, and a red notice. "No other individual is a co-owner or authorized to use this property." The screen went dark, then showed the final line. "I am not ruining the family image. I am only keeping my name in the story I wrote with a decade of work." When the video ended, the crowd outside the apartment stood, stunned for a few seconds. Then murmurs rose like a wave. People bowed their heads to whisper to neighbors. Some hurriedly pulled out their phones to look me up on social media. Others stepped away to the curb. Their gazes toward my parents changed. I saw Mrs. Garrett, the mother of Andrew's fiancé, who had been introduced as a philanthropic investor, speaking quietly with a woman in a white dress nearby. She glanced at my mother, frowned, and turned away with a look of clear displeasure. Across the screen, Andrew suddenly shouted, "She's spreading false information. This is not true. Don't believe it." But who was listening? A cameraman swept his lens to my father's face, and in that moment I saw him take one step back, his expression unmoored. My mother stood still, clutching her purse, the color drained from her face. Chloe turned to me and said in a low voice, "They didn't expect you to do this. Everything just flipped." I stayed still, my hand resting, lightly on the keyboard. Not gloating, not shaking, just a feeling of calm, like taking off a cloak that had been worn too long and had grown too heavy. The lobby security camera recorded a group of people quietly leaving the event area. Some removed their name tags. Some texted, eyes uneasy. A young woman live streaming leaned in and whispered into her phone, "This is so different from the story they sold. Valentina is not who they portrayed." I looked down at a notification on my phone. Marissa had just texted, "The video has been backed up to 3 platforms. If they sue, we are ready." Chloe touched my hand gently. "You just did something few people dare to do. Not for revenge. To remind people everyone has limits. Honor isn't something you hand out like a souvenir." I nodded. On the screen, the glass doors remained closed. No one dared knock anymore. No one stood waiting for a miracle. Everything was clear now. No door would open for those who crossed boundaries without asking. News spread faster than I expected. Less than 12 hours after the video played on the LED in front of the apartment, my name began appearing across social platforms not as Andrew's eccentric sister, but as the central figure in a story being shared across forums. Valentina Delaney, the woman, defending her living space from appropriation by her own family. Online outlets ran stories through the night, and short clips of the chaos at the lobby were shared thousands of times within hours. A trade magazine published a snide headline. From dream penthouse to public fall, the Delaney family faces a backlash. I read each line with a strange emotion. Not triumph, not bitterness. Just a quiet emptiness. As if everything I had swallowed and held down for years had finally drifted away, leaving a peaceful void. My phone rang from morning through noon, then noon through evening. I didn't answer. Messages piled up from strangers and familiar names, all in familiar tones. You embarrass the family. From my mother. You are no longer one of us. From my father. You're selfish. Destroying everything for ego. From Andrew. There was nothing new in those words. The only difference was that this time I did not feel hurt. I had anticipated these reactions, heard them in my head 100 times before they were spoken. And that realization made me understand that pain doesn't come from the words themselves, but from the expectations you placed on the speaker. I sat by the window and watched the city light up in warm streetlight hues. Chloe called. I picked up. You okay? She asked, not rushing, just the steady comfort of someone who shows up. I'm fine, I said. I thought I would fall apart when my parents disowned me. But actually, I feel like I finally put down a heavy suitcase after a long trip. Bradwell issued a statement, Chloe said. They've suspended Andrew pending an ARA's internal investigation. They say they need to clarify personal conduct and professional ethics, since this involved a public incident affecting brand reputation. I didn't feel relieved, but I felt justice. Every choice has consequences, and no one walks through another person's life without leaving footprints. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. While I was sorting through files in my study, the doorbell rang. I checked the security feed. It was Enzo Andrews' longtime friend and also a guest at the failed event. He stood at the door in a gray shirt, empty-handed, looking solemn as if he were walking into an interview rather than a private visit. I opened the door. Enzo nodded and met my gaze without coldness. I won't take long, he said. I just wanted to speak to you in person, instead of texting or calling like everyone else. I tilted my head and invited him in. We sat on the sofa by the window, where the light was still soft. He looked around the apartment as if seeing it for the first time with proper eyes. I didn't think it would go like this, Enzo said, his voice low. But when the video played, I wasn't surprised. I just felt ashamed. I stayed quiet and waited for him to continue. I've been Andrew's close friend since college. I saw a lot of family dinners where you weren't invited. Many times your parents mentioned you as someone a bit different, who needed to be redirected. I thought at first it was their way of teasing. But over time I realized they weren't joking. I listened without interrupting. They used your name, Enzo went on. They used your success as the backdrop for the ideal family narrative, but they never gave you a real place in it. And I can't deny that I helped, by staying silent, by pretending not to see. You don't owe me an apology, I said calmly, but I appreciate your honesty. I'm not sure Andrew will understand anything from this, he said slowly. He was raised to believe everything belongs to him, even things he didn't create. But I understand. And if there's any way to make amends, even in a small way, I want to try. I looked at him. His eyes reflected both regret and resolve. You can start by telling the truth about what you know, I said. Not for me, for yourself. To separate yourself from the cycle people hide behind when they say the word family. Enzo nodded. We didn't say any more. We didn't have to. Sometimes, the truth speaks for itself. When he left, I stood before the closed door and rested my forehead against the wood. There is nothing gentle about confronting family. Yet sometimes the people you love most need to be faced with the clarity that affection alone cannot provide. I returned to my desk, opened my laptop, and clicked into the folder titled, Keeping My Name. I had once only wanted to protect my space, but now I wanted to make something. Clearer than that no one, not even blood relatives, could define me for me. And sometimes, losing a family is a way to reclaim parts of life they quietly took, piece by piece, through conditional embraces, praise wrapped in expectations, and looks that never quite satisfied. I sold the penthouse on a rainy morning. There was no flashy photo shoot, no public farewell. Just me, signing the transfer documents, then quietly removing the key from the hook and placing it on the glass table in front of the broker. He looked at me as if to ask something, but I only smiled and turned away. That high-rise had been my dream, a material testament to independence and perseverance, but it also held so many silences, anxieties, and nights I cried on the sofa. The dream had served its purpose. It was time for a different space, not to prove anything, just to breathe. I bought a small house by the sea, downstate, not luxurious, not modern, but with a white wooden porch draped in bougainvillea, dark old floorboards that still smelled faintly of salt, and, most importantly, a backyard that opened straight to the ocean, where each morning I could open the door, step barefoot onto the tile, close my eyes, and listen to the waves crash on the rocks. Chloe was the first to visit. "Are you planning to hide out here forever?" she asked, opening a bag of waffles and glancing around the kitchen I was painting olive green. "Hiding is for people who run," I replied, still rolling paint slowly across the wall. "I'm actually living." Chloe laughed and pulled out her phone. "Then share that life." "I'm not joking. The way you handled the crisis and rebuilt everything touches people more than you think. There's a whole generation of women out there living for others' expectations, enduring houses that aren't really theirs. They need someone to show them it's possible to do things differently." I went quiet for a few seconds. "I'm not a life coach, Chloe." "Better," she said. "They don't need more preaching. They need to see someone who dared and is still okay." So we began. A small camera, a few memory cards, and the channel Reclaiming Space was born. The first video showed me removing my old bedroom door and replacing it with a glass frame to welcome morning light. I spoke about the feeling of finally